Abdullahi Yahya. If he's not here, distinguished Senator Augustine Akobundu. Is he here? Yes. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. My very dear colleagues, my name is Austin Akobundu, representing the good and hardworking people of Abia Central Senatorial District. Your Excellency, Mr. President, I come from Oloko Ikwano, your neighbor. First, let me thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the opportunity to make my contributions to the debate on the general principles of the 2024 appropriation bill presented by Mr. President, His Excellency, distinguished Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu, GCFR. I wish to start by joining my voices with those of my distinguished colleagues earlier in commending Mr. President for bringing the 2024 appropriation bill to the joint session of the National Assembly in line with the constitutional requirements. I have noted with deep interest the proposed budget, Your Excellency, the size of which is 27.5 trillion for 2024 fiscal year, which Mr. President clearly outlined as seeking to achieve job-rich economic growth, macroeconomic stability, better investment environment, enhanced human capital development, poverty reduction, and greater access to social security. Clearly, the bill anchors its thrust on security, education, healthcare, and poverty alleviation. But, Mr. President, my worry is on the ratio of recurrent expenditure against the capital, as well as debt servicing outlay. With recurrent expenditure of 9.92 trillion, debt servicing of 8.25 trillion, and capital expenditure of 8.7 trillion, I would have thought the alignment ought to place greater emphasis on allocation to capital expenditure, even though this represents an improvement and a departure from the past. Mr. President, you will agree with me that with higher capital budget, the government will have better funds for socio-economic and infrastructural development of the country in the areas of roads, electricity, healthcare, education, and others. Mr. President, I will recall that as the governor of Akwa Ibom State, I am your neighbor and a keen observer of your administration between 2027 and 2015. You laid very great emphasis in closing the gap and even weighing heavier on the side of the capital. I recall the figures of 70-30 ratio and sometimes 80-20 ratio in favor of capital against recurrent. And this gave you clearly the great achievement that are still being applauded today. And my question is, can we not work towards changing the budgeting system to give more allocation to capital expenditure in the interest of Nigerian people? Mr. President, if we had good capital budgets and funding, I believe the long suffering of Nigerians particularly those of Abia Central Senatorial District, would have been ameliorated. Mr. President, here lies the dilemma of the people who are suffering due to lack of funding or abandonment of projects, such as the rehabilitation of age-old Enugu-Umuahia Aba-Port Harcourt Expressway, cutting through 5 senatorial districts with mine inclusive. The construction of Umuahia-Ikotekpene, Umuahia-Ikuano-Ikotekpene Road, which you are very, very familiar with. That project has been suffering. I recall the efforts you made while you were governor up till today. Years after the award, it is still struggling due to poor funding with its attendant problems to commuters. It's still like that. Your Excellency, the abandonment of Ntalaku Oloko Nchara Road, which also links up to your state, was awarded since year 2011, is still a problem. On the issue of budget financing, Mr. President, I know that every nation borrows money. But allow me to say that we can fund this budget without borrowing through reinvigorating our strategy on internally generated revenues by ensuring that key enablers and drivers of revenue generation are retooled. And that brings to mind, for example, custom duties and excise duties. In this matter, I think that enhanced technology and automation must be deployed. A few days ago, I joined the Finance Committee, and I was impressed by the level and quality of engagement of members of that committee, led by the chairman, with the agencies saddled with the responsibility.
So you rang off, eh? Use your mic.
I was using my soldier's voice, Your Excellency. Finally, I want to thank Mr. President for the interest in prioritizing security. But as somebody with a security background, I would now like to talk about the strategy and the tactics. But we want to commend and recommend that greater emphasis should be paid and placed on intelligence gathering. Finally, Your Excellency, once more, I recommend a higher push in the area of education, healthcare, poverty alleviation to ensure that we meet the expectations and yearnings of the Nigerian people. We do not have the details, but when we have the details, I will propose that we do due diligence. Thank you, Your Excellency.